アレンジ発車いたします。本所黄色い電磁ロックの内側列車からは離れてご通行ください。アレンジ発車いたします。電磁ロック内側で動いてください。電磁が流れて動いてください。アレンジ発車します。前入場後完了。電車から離れて動いてください。黄色い電磁ロック内側で動いてください。
Adam, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Mark?
I'm very good. I'm very good. It's an absolute pleasure to be speaking with you today because I reckon you're one of the most unique voices in Australian street photography. I do find your work so vibrant, heartfelt, and considered. So tell us, when did you develop this passion for street photography?
Gosh, that's such a generous intro, my man. When did I develop the interest? It's hard to know. I think I've always loved sort of making pictures since I was younger. I trained as a designer, when I was, half the age that I am now. So I always like a really graphic sort of style. And I bought a camera probably when I was in my sort of early to mid 20s and started pressing the button and thoroughly enjoyed it, but then didn't take up street until much later on in life. I'd been going through a bit of a tough time in my life and I wanted to get back to sort of my creative roots because I knew that would make me feel better and to be able to cope better with the tough time I was going through. And I thought, oh, street sounds like a really great idea. I've heard on the grapevine that people do that's a thing. And so I thought, maybe I could be good at that. And so I just decided that I wanted to learn how to do it and try to get better at it. So
not only do you capture people in their environment, you also do some color abstracts on the street. So tell us about that.
I started sort of like black and white, I guess, for quite a while because I was like, oh, grain, emotion, narrative, story, and sort of that documentarian style. Because I mean, I wanted to be, Henri Cartier-Bresson, like everyone does at some point in time. And then I thought, I wonder what it would be like to just try to be myself as well. I wonder what that would feel like. I was so drowned in black and white. I thought, I think there's a space for some more color. And then I started to make a few mistakes. And some of those mistakes turned into some of the abstract work that I do now. So I'm super happy with myself that I just completely had no idea what I was doing. It was a real privilege. being amateur can really work in your favor sometimes, but it turns into something quite pretty, So
it is very pretty indeed. And I'm going to bring up one of your images. It's not some of your abstract work, but I'm going to.
Oh, that's fine.
Now, this is one of your photos. I think you called it Julian.
It's Julian. It's definitely Julian.
Now, tell us about this photo. Where were you and how did you get this shot?
Yeah, it was a really hot day in like the business district part of the Melbourne CBD, and I'd gone out for a stroll at lunchtime, and I was just getting ravaged by sunshine, which I adore. And I had my camera with me, and there was people everywhere, and people overdressed and underdressed, and I'd found this guy walking sort of around sort of the sort of Collins Street and William Street areas, and he was just top to toe, just in brown. It was so extraordinary. His just monochromaticness was extraordinary. It was brown hair, brown glasses, brown shoes, brown pants, brown bag, brown everything. I was like, you've really nailed this brown thing, and I really respect that. He had quite a vibe. He had like a pocket watch hanging out of his vest as well. Like it was really, it could have been a different decade. And so I sort of whatever the pedestrian version of tailgating someone is. And so I did that, until I was sort of uncomfortably close. And then he took a very hard sort of right turn. And I had a few pictures of him, like top to toe, like actual full body shots of him. Yeah. But this one was where he turned right to go in and to go into a bakery, I think. And I got this shot of him making a hard right turn into this sort of shadowy building, and it turned into to be my favorite. It was just sort of captured enough of him, and with his little sort of bag there, this very anachronistic sort of you know, briefcase. People don't use briefcase. It was
No.
yeah, it was a great day.
Don't they say never wear brown to town? Isn't that a thing?
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure. He didn't get the memo. Like he didn't get. He was too busy. He was too busy trading stocks or doing whatever Julian does. You know, I suspect he was a very powerful person. He looked powerful anyway. And when everyone else in the city is in grey or black, he really stood out as someone who was like walking to the beat of his own sort of brown drum there, and I really respected that. So, yeah.
I did want to ask you about that because you always caption your photos with little vignettes, little stories. Tell us the inspiration behind that.
Right. Okay. So I mean, like, yeah, it's hard to. There's sort of like little movies and narratives happening. You know, these people exist kind of rent free in my mind. Probably always had a bit of an overactive imagination, but at some point in time, like many years ago, I actually started taking pictures of people's front doors, which sounds weird and pointless. But then I started writing stories about what I thought might have been happening on the other side, as a way to sort of try to start imagining, like, you know, these lives of people that you never know, that we never really think about, you know, but people have their own things going on that we'll never know about. So I started to try to imagine what some of those things might be, as sort of like a bit of a way to sort of, I guess, feel some empathy for people. And that turned into this really like funny little creative project. And that sort of has spilled over into my street work. And I thought maybe if I can humanize this a little bit more.
Yeah.
And invite people to imagine that there's these people living these whole lives.
100%.
Funny, quirky, odd, eccentric, you know, mundane lives, then that might be something that's fun to do. So it's partly for my amusement because I'm easily entertained, but I just wanted to add a different dimension to it, I guess. And I didn't see much of that on Instagram, so I thought it might be just a fun way.
Definitely got a unique voice there, and you're right. It does sort of inflame the imagination about what's going on in these people's lives. And I think I've got another shot I want to talk to you about of this one here.
Oh yeah, gosh. Oh, like I have feelings when I look at it. Yeah, when I look at these, you know, when you look at an image and you're like, oh, I remember the day and the time and the sun and I remember being there. I was just really struck by this. I mean, I've always found like sort of like work really fascinating, watching people at work and how we sort of respond to and feel about that. It's something that we all have to do all the time. And he was just so in it, this guy, and he was quite expressionless, this tram driver. And it was a glorious day. And I actually was off to go and get some prints done that particular day. And I wandered up the front of the tram, and he knew I was there. And it was just all day, just his little pinky on that yellow button, just all day, just down and up. And there was just something really like powerfully mundane, but powerfully relatable about that. And he had this obviously like beautifully aged hand, and the sun hit it. Like I couldn't have asked for the light to be more divine. And it was just really just about recognizing that, and the colors. I have a bit of a penchant for primary colors, and there was plenty of them there, and I couldn't help. And I pressed the button, and it was a beautiful day, and I'm glad I have that picture to remember it for sure.
Absolutely. I wonder what that yellow button does.
It's hard to know. I mean, I have a lot of questions about the big red button in the background there. That looks like a very important button.
Button, isn't it?
But it's, and I shared this a little while ago, but I heard a person talk about, when I was trying to learn how to do good, what does good street mean? It means something different to everyone, but punctuating your image with something, and by punctuation, we mean an image should have like a comma or a question mark, or even like a very sort of full stop in a visual sense, that either invites us to think more, that invites us to maybe remain a little bit like I'm not sure, or that says this is it, this is the moment, it's quite final. And sometimes it's it's just always trying to look for just that little the depressing of the button there was that little punctuation that I needed, just to kind of say yes, this is what work means.
Well, speaking of what works, we've been in lockdown for best part of 2 years in Melbourne, and it's pretty draining.
Gosh.
Especially for street photographers. I want to ask you, how do you stay motivated when there's no one on the street to photograph, and you basically can't leave your house anyway?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I don't know. Actually, I don't think I don't have a terrific answer for you that's like, this is how you do it, because I've felt really demotivated. So probably the better answer is to say that I have actually felt really demotivated, and I miss it terribly. Like, photographing, the act of photographing and being a photographer is sort of interwoven into how I feel about myself and my self-concept. So without taking pictures, I actually feel like a little part of me is missing.
Yeah.
And that can feel really significant at times. But I stay motivated by saying to myself, one day it'll be different. So all things subject to change. It feels really permanent, I think, what's happening. But it's going to end, and at some point in time, I'll be on the street again, taking pictures of people with no masks on, and it's going to be a delayed gratification, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I live in hope. I dangle that carrot that it's subject to change. Yeah.
Well, that's right. Yeah, Kilgore said in Apocalypse Now, someday this war's going to end. So we're just going to hope, hopefully one day this war's going to end.
Yeah. It doesn't make it easier in the present necessarily, but it does give us hope, and I think that's pretty important, you know.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Before I wrap up, I just want to ask you the inspiration behind your name on Instagram, Alight Fantastic. Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. As a Terry Pratchett, actually inspired by Terry Pratchett. Yeah. I was a huge Terry Pratchett fan when I was younger. And, I really, that chaotic, crazy, colorful, fantastical world that he created really appeals to my imagination. And yeah, I don't know, the name just really appealed to me and it seemed appropriate. And so I always think about, reading Terry Pratchett and cackling to myself in my early 20s, it still makes me laugh now, but yeah.
I love your work, Adam. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and all the best. Hopefully we can get out on the streets and catch up soon.
Oh, mate, absolutely. It's such a pleasure and it's wonderful to talk to you. And yeah, thanks for having me on. This is such a great idea. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
All right, mate. See ya.